You lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, promising yourself you're going to put the phone away and finally sleep. Then you reach over, grab the glowing screen, and tell yourself just one more minute. 2 hours later, you're still scrolling, and you wake up the next morning feeling exhausted and full of regret. We tend to view this failure as a lack of discipline or a weak character, but the inability to stop is less about your personality and more about a physical mechanism in your nervous system. Your brain functions through two primary components. You have gray matter, the cells that actually generate electrical signals, and white matter, the long cellular cables that carry those signals across the organ to execute a task. The mechanical reality is that the exact same circuitry that keeps your thumb glued to a screen is the very same system that gives us the ambition to climb mountains or land on the moon. Motivation resides in a specific loop connecting two regions, the ventral tegmental area and the nucleus accumbens. This is your brain's internal reward engine. For most of human history, this circuit existed strictly for survival. When you found water, ate, or socialized, it rewarded you with a moderate dopamine burst hitting a natural baseline. This told your brain to repeat the behavior. Modern digital feeds and high arousal rewards provide a flood of stimulation that our ancestors never encountered. This saturates the circuit, spiking dopamine release so high that the brain recalibrates. It shifts your baseline upward to accommodate the intensity. Once that threshold shifts, normal life begins to feel dull. Deep, focused work or social conversations can't compete with the high-intensity signals you've grown accustomed to. This is where brain fog sets in. The system is effectively waiting for a massive hit just to feel functional. Our engine for survival has adapted to a world of constant, effortless rewards, leaving the actual mechanism of drive disconnected from real-world achievement. Elite achievers find ways to reclaim this circuitry. They don't rely on luck. They actively utilize different neural pathways to bypass the cheap rewards of modern life. Napoleon Bonaparte utilized a fear-based strategy. Before a campaign, he would obsessively visualize every scenario where he might die or lose his army. This triggered his amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, to identify and eliminate every possible risk to his survival. While effective in the short term, this state of hypervigilance floods the body with cortisol, which can lead to the physical shrinkage of the hippocampus over time. Michael Jordan utilized a different route. He focused his mental energy on the striatum, the region responsible for procedural learning. Jordan would visualize and execute the exact process of a shot, the elbow placement, the release, the follow-through, thousands of times. He repeated the sequence until the neural signal became an automatic, physical habit that required zero conscious effort to execute. You can drive your brain through chronic panic or through the relentless repetition of a physical process, but research suggests that only the process-driven route is biologically sustainable across a long career. There is a third strategy, mastered by Michael Phelps. He leaned on his prefrontal cortex, the logical executive center that acts as the brain's CEO. Phelps spent years mentally rehearsing disasters, like his goggles snapping in an Olympic final. He wasn't just worrying, he was preparing his prefrontal cortex to remain in control if the worst happened. When his goggles actually did fill with water during a world record swim in Beijing, his prefrontal cortex exerted top-down control. It sent a signal to suppress the incoming panic from the amygdala, allowing him to count his strokes and finish the race blind. The prefrontal cortex acts as a biological brake. When the lower brain screams to panic or quit, this executive center physically overrides those survival impulses to keep you on task. Think of your prefrontal cortex as a neural muscle. To strengthen your willpower, you have to train that executive center to delay gratification. This is possible because of neuroplasticity, the brain's physical ability to change its internal structure and rewire its connections in response to the environment. But there is a biological catch. Neuroplasticity is not triggered by easy, passive activities. It requires intentional, voluntary hardship, tasks that force the brain to struggle. You have to engage in activities with no immediate reward every day. Pushing through that frustration physically thickens the white matter cables connecting to your prefrontal cortex. You are building a higher capacity network for self-control, making it easier to override the impulse to scroll or quit in the future. By seeking out these daily challenges, you move from being a passive responder to your environment to an active participant in your own neural development. You are physically strengthening the circuits that will eventually define your ability to achieve.